Next order of business is motions and resolutions. There are three authors' motions. Without objection, we'll take them as one motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion prevails. Senator, under resolution, Senator Poggemiller.
Mr. President, I move adoption of Senate Resolution 193.
Secretary will read the resolution.
Senators Poggemiller and Senjum introduced Senate Resolution 193, a Senate resolution commemorating the lives and work of deceased senators.
Mr. President.
All right, Senator Poggemiller.
Mr. President, members, on your desk is a resolution commemorating the lives and work of deceased senators. The Honorable Otto Bang from 1973 to 1982. The Honorable Jerome Blatz from 1963 to 1976. The Honorable John Brandl from 1987 to 1990. The Honorable Edward Gearty, former President of the State Senate, 1971 to 1980. The Honorable James Lord, 1973 to 1974. The Honorable Harmon Ogdahl, 1963 to 1980. And another former president, the Honorable Allan Spear, 1973 to 2000. Members, this is a brief time for us to reflect on the history of the State Senate and those who have served our state so faithfully. This will be the first time that, as a member of the Senate, I've personally known, each one of these deceased members. Memories rush back with regards to many of them for me, and I would yield to any member who would like to make a comment about any of these former members.
Senator Betzel.
Mr. President, I would like to specifically comment on the Honorable Allan H. Spear. I have the honor of sitting at the desk that he sat at when I first came into this body, although he usually did not sit at this desk because he was the Senate President during the first 8 years when I was here. What I remember most about him was his fairness. Whenever he ruled on an issue that came before him, and he made a decision, you always knew he was very passionate about the things he believed in. But if he felt something that he very felt strongly about, wanted to have happen, but if it was simply out of order from the issue that was before us, he ruled it out of order. And if it was something that he opposed with every fiber of his body, but he felt was germane to the bill, he said so. And he epitomized everything that you would expect out of this body and out of the Minnesota State Senate. He was a great friend of mine, a mentor. I learned a lot from this man, and we miss him a lot. Thank you.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just reflect a little bit on both John Brandl and Allan Spear. I did not know John Brandl as well, but he did live in my part of town and certainly was very familiar with him after he left office and the fine work that he did at the University of Minnesota, working in conjunction with a lot of us. I know Senator Rummel very much values discipline and research-based policy decision-making, and John Brandl really inspired us to aspire to that ideal, and I appreciated his counsel and his availability to all of us. Of course, Allan Spear was my predecessor in this seat, immediately preceding Myron Orfield, who served a couple of years as well, but Allan served as a tremendous mentor to me dating from long before I was elected, and was actually the individual who first planted the idea of perhaps extending my public service in elective office a number of years before he decided not to pursue re-election to this seat. Everything that Senator Betzold said is absolutely right on. He will continue to be known as one of the most amazing statesmen of this state, and I'm very proud that he was recognized as one of the 150 most influential Minnesotans when the Minnesota History Center was celebrating its sesquicentennial. What a lot of folks perhaps don't know is that Allan Spear was very, very highly regarded nationally. He was absolutely a mentor in the fight for justice, civil rights, for expanding freedom and opportunity to all people. He was particularly a leader, of course, in the GLBT community. He was only the second person to come out in office, and that was at a time when it was extremely brave. You know, he was treated with great hostility in this chamber, something I'm happy to say I've never even had a whiff of, either in the House or the Senate. But he came out at a time when it wasn't uncommon for people to avoid sitting near him on the chamber, if you can believe that, and of course he received untold amount of extremely negative attention from the larger public. As such, he was extremely highly regarded, treasured and valued and loved all across this country by a lot of those early forerunners in public office. He actually counseled people like Barney Frank and Harvey Milk as they were considering running for office or coming out and living forthrightly and honestly themselves. He was a mentor, of course, to those who were coming up in the ranks behind him, myself, Speaker Margaret Anderson Kelleher, and a number of other folks. He was also very, very funny, very intelligent. He was a world traveler. He loved good food. Of course, he had that wonderful recipe for morning doves that he would share with us from time to time on the floor of the House or in committee. We lost him far, far too early, but his voice echoes very, very strong the passionate speeches that he gave on behalf of civil rights when we forever barred discrimination against members of my community. I was in this chamber then as an activist. I heard his speech, and it'll go down as one of the most amazing speeches that was ever given on the floor of this House. So he will be missed, but his legacy will live inside of us for a long, long time.
Senator Rest.
Thank you. I would like to just offer a couple of comments about Senator Brandl. He, like many of us, served in the House before he came to the Senate, and I was privileged to know him in the House as a colleague. And in particular, when he came to the Senate, he and I served on the Tax Conference Committee, he in the Senate and I in the House, and we battled royally over something called the pension exclusion. I don't know if any of you all remember that, but it was a great fight, and we ended up with a compromise that neither one of us liked, it ended up being. But I also remember him as a person of great wit and enjoyed hearing him tell of stories, particularly when he would go door knocking. And in one instance where things were not going very well for him, he was in a neighborhood and he saw somebody working on their lawn, and he went up to talk to them to ask them to vote for him, and the person turned the hose on him. And he delighted in telling that story of how he was standing there with this guy squirting him and indicating what his opinion of, at that time, Representative Brandl was. But he was a great mentor to many of us, and a colleague at the university of my former husband, and a great friend, he and his family, with ours.
Senator Higgins.
Mr. President and members, Senator Garrity was a constituent of mine, also another former president of the Senate. And I didn't really know him as Senator Gearty. I knew him as Ed. And wherever Ed was around, there was a lot of laughter. He loved life. He loved people. And he so loved being a Minnesota senator. I understand that at some point, Senator Tennyson and Senator Garrity got into an exchange here on the Senate floor where Senator Tennyson evidently suggested that the president do some anatomically impossible thing, And the exchange evidently ended up in the New York Times. So, oh, Ed was so proud of that. He just would laugh and laugh and laugh every time he would see Senator Tennyson. So as we're thinking about all the people who came here before us, think some good thoughts about Senator Ed Garrity.
Senator Higgins, is it true that he had an identical twin brother and he had him stand up here one day? And maybe that's just a... I don't know, that's probably not true, but I heard that a couple of times. But anyway, we're going to move on this resolution, and we'll all stand after the resolution for a brief moment of silence. Senator Pogmiller.
Mr. President, I want to offer just a brief recollection of each. It'll be very brief.
Okay.
What comes to mind, first I want to mention that this is a time to reflect on your service also. We all know it's such an honor to be in this room, and many great people have been here before us. And I think each and every one of our aspirations should try to do something memorable that someone will remember. As a young person, some of these were people that I didn't know intimately, but I had met. And I remember Otto Bang as a natty dresser in the 70s. A natty dresser in the 70s. Senator Blatz, that's the first powerful tax chair that I ever knew. Senator Bach. Senator Blatz was the powerful tax chair. Senator Brandl was school reform. Senator Badoff and Senator Salzman. Senator Gearty, as Senator Higgins just said, he was just funny. Senator Lord was young and tanned, kind of the Beach Boys. Ogdahl, Senator Ogdahl was pensions. He was the pension guru back in those days. Then finally, Senator Spear, what I remember most is his intellect and his courage. Mr. President, I would move the adoption.
Motion to adopt the resolution. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Now we'll stand for a moment of prayer and silence. You may be seated.